So
I feel for you, mate.
so I'm just getting sick, and you are almost finished being sick. So welcome to a 100% healthy 107 podcast. Today we will be covering arguably the sickest race ever, and that was the Baku Grand Prix. That definitely wasn't a pre-arranged segue. What a snooze fest.
Yeah, I mean, why have you started laughing?
Because it was just a snooze fest. Like the F2 was more interesting.
Yeah, I think if you're a new fan to Formula One, these races will happen. You're going to get a few of them throughout the year.
True.
I think the shortening of the DRS zone obviously had a bit of a negative impact. Didn't allow for as many overtakes. The safety car came out pretty much when the safety car window opened, so most people would have pitted then.
Yeah.
Anyway, I only really messed around Verstappen
and Lewis.
That was it. And I think Lewis did all right at the end. He got past George. He made some moves.
Or at the time, it messed up Lewis.
Yeah, at the time, it messed up because he just pitted. But
yeah,
it was literally just. It was just. Yeah, and no one crashed as well. Probably because of the cost cap, right? They're like, look, we cannot afford damage. Don't take any risks. So.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there were more overtakes in the sprint race than there was in the actual race.
Wow.
So I believe there were 19 overtakes during the sprint race and only 13 during the actual race.
Yeah. I was hoping that Max would put a little bit more pressure on Sergio. But, Sergio had it in the bag. He just controlled that race from start to finish, and good on him, you know. A lot of people thought Max was going to walk away with it, but I think Sergio's showing like, nah, nope.
Yeah, I mean, street circuits.
Would you count Miami street circuit?
Right, a car park is not a street, okay?
Technically, it's like associated.
Technically, it's private property. That's about as close to the street as you're going to get. Miami is not a street circuit. It's not. It's in a car park of a football stadium to do with a dolphin. It's not a street.
The way I classify it is if it's not a purposely built racetrack like Spa or Silverstone, it's a street circuit, right? They've had to work within the means.
True. However, what public roads does the Miami Grand Prix use?
The Miami Grand Prix car park.
Exactly, which is not a street. It's a car park. There's not like classic roads or anything like that. It doesn't use any pre-existing roads. It just is a car park.
It's just a load of cement.
A flat underwater car park. So, yes, obviously the race was pretty flat. Just like Miami. However, we do have some talking points, don't we? Should we actually start with qualifying on the Friday?
Big up number 16, Charles.
Yes.
2 poles.
Smashed
2
it
in a row. Yeah, I think I think it's similar to what's happened with McLaren, is they just have another chance to show their pace. The car's obviously not all there as well. They've got upgrades and tweaks that they need to make, but it's still inherently a quick car. And Charles showed it by getting pole twice, and good on him. Obviously, the race pace is not really comparable to the Red Bulls.
No.
And I think Alonso was only a second off him at the end of the race. So they've got to work on that. But yeah, well done to him in qualifying.
I don't know whether or not it's like they've got to work on that. I think Leclerc actually managed the race very well. And I just think that Aston is also very good. I don't necessarily think it's anything wrong with Charles or anything wrong with the Ferrari. I'm just saying that Aston is ridiculous as well.
No, you don't get all those podiums without it being a quick car and
exactly
its tires and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of Ferrari, while one driver did well, Carlos kind of underperformed a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to him. He's sort of gone off the boil, which is very interesting / concerning. I mean, this is the first race back after the 3-week break. So let's maybe see if he just needed to, get rid of the dust. It's a street circuit. Maybe he wasn't feeling that confident. It's obviously like high risk, high reward when it comes to that track. So maybe he'll be back on form in Miami. Who knows? So we'll have to wait and see whether or not there's like a smooth transition from Baku to Miami. Yeah, exactly, for him. So for me, I think the qualifying was pretty straightforward, to be completely honest, and it was much better than the qualifying on the Saturday.
Yeah, but what I found was, because it was on at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't have that same emphasis to it's Formula One, let's go.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like having the qualifying on Friday and having two qualifyings just took away from the specialness of qualifying. And it's just like, well, we kind of know what's going to happen because of Friday. It's either going to be Red Bull or Charles on pole. What's the point of watching it, So if it was probably a little bit later in the day, I probably would have watched it. But for races like Japan, Australia, if they were to have sprint races, and that, like, I'm just like, I'm not getting up to watch a repeat of a Red Bull or Charles or whoever put it on pole the day before, put it on pole on a Saturday, or be at the front kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously Saturday was the brand new Sprint Saturday format where they did qualifying, which was Q1 knocks out 5 cars and is on the medium. Q2 knocks out 5 cars, is on the medium. And then Q3 was a shootout for the top 10, and it was on the soft. You got 12, 10, and 8 minutes respectively for each qualifying round. And it was reasonably boring-ish. It wasn't amazing. I obviously woke up for it.
It was very forgettable.
It was nothing in particular really happened, which is kind of fine. But also, when you're trying to make this big spectacle out of a new thing, maybe make it interesting. I still feel like one-shot quali probably has its place. Or like I said, like a head-to-head would also be interesting as well. So, like, I think, again, how Formula E does it would be pretty interesting too. But just doing that format wasn't amazing. Or go hard, medium, soft. Don't go medium, soft for the quali rounds, because that makes no sense. At least make them slightly different. For me, that it just doesn't make sense. And to try that new format at Baku also makes no sense.
Yeah. Also, the fact that it doesn't have an impact on the main race means it's just kind of its own thing, and people just like I just wasn't invested into it. So okay. Whoever wins a sprint race, whoever wins a sprint qualifying. The only thing it did do, which also affected the snooze fest on Sunday, was it showed what tyres worked and what didn't.
True.
So you could see that the soft tyres just went off really quickly. Well, we won't use them in the race tomorrow.
Yeah, Lando tried using the softs in the sprint race. That's one good thing, actually, that did kind of come out of the sprint race to prepare everyone for the race proper, is that those soft tyres were at that track horrific.
But would you say that's a good thing or a bad thing? Because if you don't have that,
good for
maybe they could have picked up on like an FP2 and FP3.
Good for the teams.
Yeah.
Bad for the fans and for the racing. Because good for the teams because they've got that extra data. They know race pace. Right, this soft is not. It's not it. Yeah. I believe the only person who used softs during the race. No, I think there were 2. Was Ocon for the last lap and Russell for the last lap, I believe, of the race proper. But I just think that because we're talking about tyres anyway, I was going to bring it up a bit later. But for me, with tyres, that hard tyre should not be lasting the entire length of the race, and that medium tyre should not be lasting that long as well. And then the soft tire should not only last 9 laps. Like you could start, like, the medium tire was fine for like 25, maybe even 30 laps if you really wanted it to be.
Well, and look at Ocon.
And the hard. Well, yeah. How long was Ocon on those mediums for? Was it the whole? It wasn't the whole race, was it? Because he was on hards the beginning of the race. I
There
believe.
was a safety car, yeah, but
Yeah,
some
but anyway,
bits.
those medium and hard tires should not be lasting that long whatsoever, especially like in comparison to the soft tire being such a short lifespan. Pirelli really need to up their game as far as I'm concerned when it comes to these tires, like because it just. I don't want them to create tires like what happened with last time in Baku, where like these tires are designed to fail dramatically, and obviously Verstappen crashed out and had a very serious crash down that Baku straight. But at the same time, they shouldn't be designed to do that. Like the difference shouldn't be so big between soft and medium and hard.
Well, Esteban did the whole race basically on those tires.
Yeah, and they
So he
were
only made his one stop at the end.
and they were hards, right?
I need to bring that data up somewhere. Either way, he did 50 laps on a set of tires.
On a set of tires, which is shouldn't happen. Like for me, a hard tire, it should be realistically, it should be a hard lasts 30 to 35, a medium lasts 18, 22, and a soft lasts 8 to 12. Realistically, that's the perfect sort of window.
So there's two things to that. There's one is they obviously have to do the research and change the compound because every circuit's different.
Yeah.
What's low and high deg, so you've got to give, I think, Pirelli a bit of leeway in that. But I think maybe to kind of go against your point is that they should say, well, if you're kinder on your tires, we're going to give you this medium or hard, which is going to last for ages, and you get performance out of it, and you can do one stop.
True.
Whereas if if you're kinder on your tires, you'll probably get softer. Sorry. But then some teams will like, look, we're not that great on the tires. We'll go for a medium and a one stop as opposed to a Red Bull, Ferrari might 2 or 3 stop. And that could change races up a little bit as well.
True.
So yeah, it's just a weird game with the tires at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But yeah, it was just a snooze fest. And if it was like a soft, like a red wall and a yellow wall, I think it would have been a more exciting race. At least I think you should have a minimum of 2 stops in a race. Minimum. I think that's what Pirelli or FIA, FOM should be aiming for. A one-stop race is just like, yeah.
I don't know about 2, personally, but maybe.
Well, you'd say more?
I was thinking 6. I was thinking like Jensen Button.
Stops.
Canada 2011.
They spend more time in the pits than they would on the track.
That's fine by me. There's more photographers to hit. Yeah, we'll touch on that very quickly. Obviously, there was if you don't know already, there was a very, very scary incident, essentially, where Esteban Ocon, Alpine, he had done pretty much the entire race on one tyre compound. Last lap of the race, or he was pitting to then enter into his last lap of the race, as per your one mandatory pit stop. And essentially what happened was the FIA or the event organisers or whoever it was decided, right, well, no one else is going to pit. It's the last lap. Let's whip out the barriers for Parc Ferme. And essentially what happened was nobody sort of stopped them. And then all of a sudden, there is an Alpine driving at photographers at 80 kilometers an hour. Essentially, these photographers had assembled, let's say, around Parc Ferme, ready to take pictures of the podium winners. Podium winners? Is that what you would call them?
I won't say because there's only one winner.
The people on the podium. And essentially Esteban's like, this is my swamp, what the fuck are you doing in the pit lane? Because there were loads of photographers in the pit lane, and he almost hit them. Very luckily, the photographers were able to get out of the way, but it was very, very scary. If you were listening to the F1 TV international broadcast or you were watching via Sky Sports, then you would have heard Ted and Crofty obviously being quite scared about the situation. Essentially, it is not good at all what happened at the end of that race whatsoever. It was horrific. And it was especially scary considering that even on this podcast we were talking about Australia last week around how they let people VIPs in the pit lane when Albon had not even pitted at all, and it was the last lap, and he pitted in 2022 in Australia, and there were people in the pit lane. This was nowhere near as bad, the incident in Australia, but still it was not good at all, and it was a close call. This was even closer in Baku. This was genuinely pretty bad. If you've got one of the photographers looking the other way, not paying attention, maybe they're on their phone, whatever it is, your ankles are going to get broken by an Alpine. There's no other way of putting it. It was very, very bad. And we were sort of speaking to each other as it sort of happened, Ash and I, and we sort of joked and said, the FIA won't really do anything about this. Like, they'll just, sweep it under the carpet. And surprise, surprise, they did. You sent me the official statement, didn't you, Ash?
Yep. Which basically says, we'll do better next time.
Yeah, it was just, sorry, we almost killed the photographers, sorry. And that was about it. It was not good.
It wasn't just the photographers. Obviously, you'd think the teams would be going up to celebrate with their drivers as well. But I didn't think I saw any, because I think all the teams knew it's like, dude, we're still racing.
Yeah,
I think there were some people from the FIA that were literally about to barrier off.
Yeah.
Where they're like, there's an Alpine coming towards us. Look, considering F1 is like, they say it's the pinnacle of motorsport, of engineering, the best drivers and all that, whoever it was, whether it's the race organizers, whether it's the FIA, did not know that, hey, Esteban Ocon hasn't pitted, the race is still going. It's like, either way, it's like, if he doesn't pit, he's disqualified. Let's keep an eye on that. If he does pit, let's make sure that no one's in the pit lane.
Yeah.
I know there's some things that if it can happen, it will happen, but I don't know. Like, that's basic stuff, right? That's basic stuff. Like, there's no rush to get the podium set up.
No.
Right? Or not that much of a rush.
Because they've still got to do a whole nother lap.
Yeah.
So you've got
No, there can't be that much of a rush, because if there's red flags and safety cars and whatever, races are delayed. So it's not like, we have to finish by a certain time. So
yeah, exactly.
And look, they've done it for hundreds of races before. It's
embarrassing.
It is. That's it.
For them, it's very embarrassing. Which is why they tried to sweep it under the rug. And for me, when they're, telling Max Verstappen not to wear a nipple ring and stopping people from riding bikes and scooters and whatever during these track walks, the FIA have repeatedly been looking into the wrong
Lewis,
things.
You can't wear your nose ring.
You can't wear your nose ring, but we are going to put a metal barrier in front of a car driving 80 kilometers an hour through a pit lane during an active race. Good job, everyone. Like,
and you see what happens to pit stop crew if someone misses their brake marks, right? They get hurt.
Yeah,
really bad.
There was the not so famous, but a memorable incident where Lance was maybe 15, 20 centimeters over his pit stop marks, and he sent the jack person flying. Couple of seasons ago, that's why I bring it up. He felt horrific. He apologized to them, and I think they were all good. But it was while it was still not Force India. While it was still Racing Point. And so it was quite a while ago, but it still lives in my memory because obviously the jack person got literally thrown away from the car.
Did the guy break his leg as well?
So that was I believe, I don't know the full facts, but essentially for anyone watching the podcast, what happened was there was a test for a Ferrari or like a promotional event thing where they had a older Formula One car, Ferrari Formula One car. And I think the driver, I don't know who it was, slipped the clutch. And there was an engineer stood between the car and a wall that was maybe a meter or two away from the nose of the car. And what happened was the Ferrari drove into the guy and essentially snapped both of his ankles, as far as I'm aware. I think he had a full recovery, but there was a rumor going around that he lost his ankle, like lost his whole foot, had to be amputated. I believe there was a rumor going around. I wouldn't just make that stuff up. even as I disappear on the video feed. But yeah, so it's obviously not anything to mess around with. Like, you could be seriously injured by something, for sure.
No, there was an incident in a race as well. I'm just trying to
I
find
don't know
it.
about a race. I
No,
know.
it was in Bahrain.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
it was Raikkonen a few years ago.
Yes, he ran over his leg, didn't he? And
Yes, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were on about the other incident.
I've not heard the other incident. Yeah, but this is one in
Okay.
Bahrain because I'm watching it right now.
Yeah, it's bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's bad, but
It's not
so
Raikkonen's fault, by the way. It just,
no.
it just
It
is
was one
what
of
it
those
is.
things that, yeah, it's one of those things that happen. But also, there's an expectation if you're in
Yeah.
the pit crew. It's like, look, we do a dangerous job. We want to maximize safety for those changing the tires. But there's a Formula One car coming out to me at 60, 80 kilometers an hour. I might get hurt, right? Not saying that they should get hurt, but there is an expectation that we do a dangerous thing. Photographers, even though they know they're in a dangerous environment, are not expecting a car to be coming at them.
No, not in that
environment.
environment anyway.
Yeah.
So as a bit of a background, I've done photography on a track, and fortunately, I've never had a car flying at me. But the idea, and because you're so close to these cars, because you're so close to them, seriously, if they put one step wrong, or I don't know, there's a sudden gust of wind, or they get tapped where they're not expecting to, and they overcompensate, or whatever it is, there's nothing between you and them half the time. And if there is, there's some tires maybe. Admittedly, my experience was nowhere near on a level as the FIA organised tracks, but at the same time, it can be potentially devastating. And motorsport is nothing to mess around with. Nothing.
No, it is a super dangerous sport.
It is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, even just not even motorsport, but like obviously at the Nürburgring, there are how many hundreds of accidents there every single year, and that's like a public thing that people can just turn up and go to, and hundreds of people get injured every year.
Yeah, and also as a driver, like you think, right, the pit lane's clear. This is my braking point for the limiter. I've got to come in. This is my marks, right turn left. I've got to hit the braking point right, so for my team, so they can change the tires, and there's no delay. I don't lose half a second or a second because I have a shot. You just these drivers have got super quick reactions anyway, but they're not expecting people there. So imagine you're Esteban Ocon. You come super fast into that pit lane because it's basically towards the end of the straight, and then you've done your little turn, brake, and even said on interviews, if I miss my braking point for whatever reason, someone's getting hurt.
Yeah.
Or I have to crash this car if I'm trying to avoid people, and I think I've lost you.
No, it's fine. It's just my camera's messing up. I do apologize.
Oh, okay. So there's just so many variables in there. The one thing you don't want is to add to that, right? You want to minimize what these drivers will be focusing on, and I just hope they learn from it. That's all. I just hope they learn from it. That's it. And I think some more stringent. Maybe they did it behind the scenes, but some more stringent punishment should have been given.
Yeah, absolutely. Either way, it is absolutely insane. What happened essentially? Absolutely ridiculous.
So, Red Bull 1-2, Ferrari, Charles doing well. Carlos needs to pick it up. Fernando and Lance for Aston Martin. Lance seems to be pushing a little bit more. I know he made that mistake, which lost him the position, but he seems to be picking it up, matching Fernando a little bit more. I think Fernando's still away, but I do love this father-son relationship they have.
Yeah, it's been interesting for sure. I think it's been interesting, obviously, like especially with the brake balance thing.
Brake balance. Tell Fernando I'm not going to attack. I'm just staying in DRS. And considering what people's image of Fernando is, and they always bring up Lewis Hamilton and teammates, I just love it's like, tell Fernando I'm not going to attack. He's like, well, he can try.
Yeah, it's just
tell him this is my brake balance. It might work for him.
It might work, and then immediately
and then he goes up. I don't think that was a brake issue.
No. I think so. From what I saw, he had just a bit of understeer essentially. For those of you watching on video, I'm currently having some video issues, so I do apologise.
It's our first technical issue on the podcast.
First technical issue other than streaming 2 weeks ago.
I just get to talk to the 107 podcast logo.
Yeah, perfect.
Which was very well designed by Jacob.
Oh, why, thank you. It's almost like I'm a graphic designer. And then, almost. But yeah, I think for me, I think that Alonso has very clearly taken an interesting position up, and is almost carrying on from Vettel's position, where sort of like, I remember from the end of last season, Mike Crack was sort of talking about, Sebastian Vettel being so influential and changing the way they do debriefs and stuff like that. So I think Alonso has come in, seen the expectation, and then is potentially taking a slightly different role. Maybe with the looks at becoming a team principal himself or something like that. Potentially, you never know. I think that's my perspective on it. I might be completely wrong, but I think that could be an angle that maybe he's thinking about. In terms of like career longevity, because he's already retired once. Who's to say he doesn't retire again in a few years? I know he's obviously said, he feels as good as he feels, etc., etc., but you just never know. I mean, he could touch wood, like, he could have an accident like Kubica, break his leg or something like that, and that could be the end of it. You never know. What's around the corner. So he could be,
This is a place for people to escape, just listen to Formula One podcast.
Well, speaking of escaping,
we've been talking about broken legs and people getting run over.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have to bring up death in a little bit as well. That's something I want to cover. But not death in general. I'll get to that in a minute. But we'll get to it.
Life?
We'll get to it.
Life?
Yeah. We're actually switching up from a Formula One based podcast. We're actually just going general sort of just into just the delve of just ridiculousness.
We're having an existential crisis here.
Essentially, yes. It's my quarter life crisis.
The camera breaks and all of a sudden so does Jacob.
The camera breaks and now I have no identity to be associated with. I can say whatever I like as the 107 podcast. But yeah, so I think Alonso could potentially be thinking about like those next career steps and stuff like that. And maybe, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But either way, it's a very, very nice team dynamic for them to have. I can't think of many other pairings or drivers that would do that for the other driver. The only two I can think of are Seb and Lewis.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it shows the environment at Aston Martin.
Yeah,
where they're being collaborative and their social media is really done well. It's fun, and I think that just sets up a good environment for the team to just continually pushing, because like you're more likely to say, I'm really enjoying this. Let's get the maximum out of the car. Let's push. Let's keep developing. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that's reflected with that. So let's quickly run through the teams, because I know there's a couple of things that you want to talk about. So Mercedes, pretty standard race for them. Seems like the upgrades helped a little bit in qualifying, but not too much in the race. Although Lewis did a very nice move on George.
True.
And George did. I think the George Max move was fair. I think Max has done it to a few races in the past, and he just kind of got a taste of his own medicine.
So obviously you're talking about the sprint race.
Yeah.
So sprint race. I think for me, it's so Max gave George enough room.
Yeah.
Max was then hit, and quite a fair bit of damage was done, might I add.
Yeah, there's a hole in the side part.
There's a massive hole in there. I believe there was a little bit of damage to the floor. Not entirely sure, but again, whatever. Still, the damage in the side pod is enough. For me, Max is entitled to be angry, as far as I'm concerned. If somebody smashes into your car, you're entitled to be angry. No matter who it is, the circumstances, whatever, you're entitled to be angry. On the road or on a racetrack, right?
Yeah. No. My point is the way Max reacted is like he's never done it himself. I was like, dude, you do it all the time.
He does do it quite a lot. The funny thing to me was that I'd actually been spending quite a bit of time on Twitter, this weekend. I was tweeting a little bit
you
around
okay?
the F2 race and stuff like that.
How's the mental health?
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. I'm ready to subscribe to Twitter Blue. I signed up to a pyramid scheme.
Right. Do you hate everyone now?
I hated everyone before, so my opinion has not changed. Maybe I am the perfect Twitter user. But so with being on Twitter, I did see quite a few people blame Max for various other incidents in the past. However, the most ironic things were when they were pointing out incidents where Max was not at fault, which was just hilarious. So, for example, when Max and Lewis made contact coming into turn 2 in Brazil last year, and it very clearly was Hamilton squeezing him, not giving him enough room on the inside of the corner, and was ideally his fault. And so there were just examples of that where it was just like more on Hamilton rather than Max, in my opinion.
I think we need to put that instant on the list. I think Hamilton was not at fault there.
So
we'll put this. We'll do another podcast because
we'll review some bits and pieces.
So
but yeah,
we wanted 3. So we've got Vettel, Hamilton.
We've
got Hamilton, Verstappen in Brazil. We'll find another one and we'll do a podcast on them.
Sure. But yeah, so for me, I think Max was entitled to be angry, but I think that him getting revenge or being like, oh yeah, you wait for next time is a bit much, but also inject it into my veins because that's amazing.
Most exciting part of the weekend.
One of the most exciting parts.
Calling him a dickhead.
I don't know if anyone caught this, but on Lando apparently shouted at George, "Try not to hit anyone today," down the paddock, which was overheard by quite a few people, which is just brilliant. I do like the fact that there are like cliques of drivers who all seem to get on really well, especially those Twitch guys and all of the rookies from that season where they all came into their respective teams. But yeah, so there was that. What other teams do you want to talk about?
Well, we'll go through them all, but I know there's 2 that we'll spend a little bit more time on. One, so we've done Alpine. So they went 14th, 15th, pretty quiet race.
Yeah,
Williams were 16th and 12th. Again, I think Logan Sargent did well considering he didn't do the sprint race.
Yeah.
Alpha seemed to be nowhere. Valtteri does not seem
What is wrong with that car? Valtteri also had a couple of extra pit stops, didn't he?
Yeah, he pitted quite a few times. So
2 or 3 times even?
Unfortunately, didn't he had an issue. So the 2 teams I wanted to talk about were AlphaTauri, because that was a mixed bag with Yuki doing well, getting the final points position in 10th, and Nick seemingly not living up to the expectations that have been set for him.
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it?
Yeah, considering I said he would beat Yuki at the start.
Yes, that was a great prediction, wasn't it? Genius. So the
long way to go in the season.
There is a long way to go in the season. We're only round 4. All right, I'll calm down.
I'm wrong, and it's looking like I am wrong because Yuki did really well throughout the whole weekend. I think you got the best out of that car, and Nick just doesn't. Either maybe it's the car, it's different to the Williams. Maybe the pressure of actually, it's not just one race. You got to deliver throughout the season.
Yeah,
coming up against Yuki, because who was he against before? Was it Latifi before?
Yuki.
No. Nick DeVries when he got his point for Williams.
It was.
Latifi was in the other
It was
car,
Latifi, yeah. Goat Tifi.
Goat Tifi, yeah. So, yeah, he's got a lot of work to do to start to turn his season around. Otherwise, he may not be there next season.
You could even be especially harsh and say he's not even going to be there at the end of the season. There is that real possibility. In all honesty, this is from my perspective. Knowing, I think if it was 2 or 3 years ago, Red Bull junior program, Red Bull drivers program, yes, he probably would be gone halfway through the season if he didn't pick up a result in the next 1 or 2 races. But maybe the new improved Red Bull management team might give him a little bit more. But you do have Liam Lawson sat there in the wings, waiting, ready to go. And he won a Super Formula race on his debut a few weeks ago. So you've got somebody hot and ready to go in the sidelines.
I think actually maybe the former might happen. I think if the next few results he's not on Yuki's level or close to it and getting that car in
summer
points.
break,
I think
right?
they may be like, you know what? Let's just try another drive and see what they can do. Because then you got 2 drivers that test during the season rather than do one, didn't get much out of it. Now we'll try another driver. So
it's usually in the summer break, whenever those mid-season changes come around, right?
Yeah, it's around August time, isn't it? So
so I guess for Spa,
yeah, usually a lot's announced at Spa. So
yeah. But so I'm literally double checking right now. So it would be Hungary, Belgium.
Because Hungary's the race
last,
before the summer break.
Yeah, those would be the last races. So round 13, and then so Belgium is 28th to the 30th of July, and then round 14 is the 25th to the 27th of August. So it's literally a month apart. So if we're maybe going to see any changes happen, it will be probably between Belgium and the Netherlands. But I think that Nick really does have to pull his finger out, because like everything that could have gone wrong for him went wrong. Essentially, he had a horrid weekend, and he has been suboptimal, below par, pretty much the rest of the season. There hasn't been. Can you think of one particular moment where you've gone, Nick, nice, you've done well?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
So, and again, this is nothing against Nick. He was absolutely incredible in F2, F3 as well.
It could just take some time to
brilliant in Formula
get
E.
used to it.
It could be the car. It could be a Daniel Ricciardo McLaren.
I don't know, because Yuki's doing well.
True, but Yuki's doing well. But he's been this is his 3rd year in the car.
Yeah, but this is Formula One.
Yeah.
You don't really get time, kind of thing. So
no, it's
hopefully he turns it around. He's obviously a talented.
Yeah, I hope so. Absolutely. But on the flip side, hats off to Yuki, because what phenomenal consistency. I think 2 P10s, 2 P11s, brilliant. Like for the car, which is arguably one of the slower on the grid, towards the back of the grid anyway, to have picked up a couple of points positions already. Hats off to you. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, good on you. And hopefully he keeps this up, and they can develop the car, and he can really get more into the midfield battle. Actually, I'll just say this also. Hats off to Williams, because for a long time they were just the back of the grid, and now they've made a good push into the midfield.
Yeah, Williams have done pretty well, actually. I have to say, Williams, like, actually not regularly, because they've only done it once. But Williams being able to score points this early on in the season, and them having a chance of scoring points in any race. Like, if they have decent strategy and maybe a little bit of luck, they can pick up a couple of points. It's brilliant, compared to a few years ago where it was just like something insane has to happen, like a hurricane followed with a tornado, and then
or they just have to cancel a race.
God himself has to come down from heaven, or the Belgian fucking Grand Prix has to happen in order for this Williams and score points. So I think hats off to the team down at Williams, because they've done an incredible job for sure.
Cool. And then obviously the final team, the one that's not talked about much on this podcast by you, and I'm sure you've got your orange glasses on. We could never tell because the camera's on.
They're not orange, they are
McLaren.
Papaya.
Which is basically a form of orange.
It's papaya, how dare you?
It's papaya orange, isn't it? I'm sure that's the colour. Anyways, upgrade's doing well, and so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing.
I know exactly what. Can I predict what you're going to say?
No, you won't know what I'm going to say.
These upgrades aren't even supposed to suit this track, so they might be better at the next track.
No, that was actually not what I was going to say.
God damn
but
it.
Okay. What I was going to say was we're talking about like Nick maybe needing time. Oscar Piastri though, came in and has hit the ground running with that car. You know, pushing Lando. I think he's out-qualified Lando as well a couple of times, getting it into points.
Yep.
So good on him, considering he's new into Formula One, just like Nick de Vries.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd like to touch on Ari McLaren. First off is, can I point out that Piastri was sick the entire weekend?
Yeah, no, that's
he was sick.
Like driving a car, like the Formula One car, just normal, it's super hard. We talked about this last week.
It's the one of the
fit
most
you have to be.
intense things you will ever do in your entire life
Yeah.
is driving a Formula One car.
Doing it with a stomach bug, because like when you've had a stomach bug, you just fucking leave me alone. I just want to be in a fucking bathroom or bed, and that's it. Is hats off to him. No, seriously, hats off to him.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know what very interesting kind of sub conversation to have. I wonder who they would have pulled in if Piastri had just gone, no, I'm not racing. No. I wonder what reserve driver they would have pulled in. Probably Mick, because Mick was also at the track that week, and Mick is available to McLaren as a reserve driver. That's my prediction as to who they probably would have pulled in very last minute because he was there.
Okay. They also have Stoffel Van Dorn and Filippo Drogovic, who are Aston Martin's reserve drivers.
True.
So they have access to them as well.
So, but let's be honest, you probably would have taken Mick. He's got the most recent F1 experience.
With the new cars, yeah.
With the new cars, so you probably would have taken Mick. So that's a very interesting thing to think about, actually. If there was anything to happen to the McLaren drivers and they weren't able to race for that weekend. But yeah, so Norris did pretty well. I think Norris had a very interesting race, played a bit of a blinder because all he had to do was just keep calm and steady because he knew that Hülkenberg and Ocon, who were in front of him for most of the race thanks to the weird safety car, were going to have to pit at some point because they hadn't had their mandatory pit stop. So all Norris had to do was stay within within a pit stop gap, and also obviously just stay within DRS distance of Hulk, I think, which he was for the majority of the time as well, to save tyres. And did brilliantly well to take home 2 points.
Yeah, no, good on them. The upgrades are working.
Yep.
Drivers are performing, and
I think
hopefully they'll bring that car back up towards the top end of the field.
Do you know what? If there is one McLaren podium during this year, as a McLaren fan, I would be over the moon.
Are you gonna tattoo something like an orange? Get a papaya tattoo.
I already have a McLaren tattoo. I don't need another.
Yeah, but it's not in papaya, is it?
True. Yeah, true. Actually, it is. I don't know if it's like a black McLaren logo, and then underneath it, it's got a little papaya shadow.
Oh,
I know, how lovely. But yeah, so for me, I think McLaren had a very good weekend. I think it would be interesting to see how those the upgrades to the car actually perform in other racetracks, especially as Lando said something particularly interesting, and he said they were looking at P4, P5 during quali, which is mad. Maybe they would have got that in the sprint qualifying. Obviously, Lando got through to Q3 of the sprint qualifying, but then because of some, in all honesty, very badly written rules, he was unable to take part in Q3 of the sprint qualifying purely because he didn't have a fresh set of softs. Which, by the way, the exact same thing would have happened to Yuki Tsunoda. And in a random loophole, if both of them had gotten through to Q3, they both could have participated and tried to set times on wet compound tyres. That is a deadly serious thing because they
saved the tyres.
They didn't have fresh softs. If they'd both got through, it would have been one versus the other, and they could have done it on wet tyres. I'm not kidding. Would you have gone full wet or inters?
I probably would have gone
inters. I would have gone inters because they're like semi slicks, aren't they? I guess the wets are like tractor tyres. In comparison, but yeah, so that was about it for McLaren. I think they did pretty well. It's going to be very interesting to see, how they manage to push forward onto next race weekend, because it is race week this week.
It is race week. Oh, feels good.
It feels good to not have a massive break in between races. But before we do jump on to Miami. Is there anything else around this race that we want to talk about? I'm going to go with no, because not a lot happened.
No, I think we've covered everything.
But I think we covered everything. There was nothing else really. I would like to very quickly give a quick shout out to Checo. Phenomenal drive. We didn't really talk about his commanding drive. I think that was absolutely brilliant. A little bit of luck with the safety car, but that's Formula One. Sometimes things fall your way, sometimes they don't. And I think it's absolutely great because the two Red Bull drivers are very, very closely tied for the championship right now. So I think it's brilliant. Because we could have not a silver war situation, but we could have a inter-team battle for the championship this year, which would be very, very interesting.
I hope so. The Red Bulls are so far ahead of everyone. The only way to make it exciting is for them to be battling each other like Nico and Lewis did.
Yeah, pretty much. Hopefully it would
'Cause you
add a
can
bit of spice to this season.
Yeah, because like Nico Lewis 2014, 2016 is a lot more interesting than Valtteri and Lewis from 2017 to 2021.
One, yeah.
So, yeah, no, the only two things I wanted, no, the only other thing I wanted to talk about was Red Bull extending Adrian Newey's contract.
Yes.
It's over. It's over. Red Bull going to win everything now.
I mean, the man who sees physics.
Look, because they're developing their own engines, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he's gone in there. It's like, well, can we try this and can we do this? So they've got the car developed by him and his team. I'm not going to say team because obviously lots of people are involved.
Yes.
And they're going to have their own engines, all under Adrian Newey's watchful eye. I'm just going to be like, please, can they just have either Checo or whoever it is from 2026 fighting Max, if Max is still there.
Yeah.
Just have them fighting each other because, yeah, that car with their own engines and their own design, which they already have, of course, could be a rocket ship.
Yeah, it could
or even
be
more of a rocket ship. It'd be a hyper ship.
Yeah, it could be absolutely insane. I reckon that there's also the potential. Do you remember we talked about how there's maybe a loophole in the cost cap where you could have these like high performance parts of Formula One or like of companies, so like Aston Martin have one and stuff like that.
Yeah, Red Bull have one.
And
Red Bull Advanced Technologies.
Yes, Red Bull Advanced Technologies, right? So now they're partnering with Ford. What's to say that Ford don't also do that and also do something similar with engine technology and stuff like that? Especially because obviously the engine regulations are going to change.
Yeah,
it's potentially very interesting and even worrying that they are going to run away with it like Mercedes did.
Yeah, no, that's a strong possibility because obviously if you think about it, with Renault and Honda, which obviously they built great cars in that time, but it was within the confines of the engine built with Renault and Honda, and I'm sure they obviously have feedback and tweak this and changes. Now it's literally like we are building our own engine in the way we want it to be for our car.
It could be a bit mad.
Could be a bit mad.
But that being said, they should absolutely scrap the new engine regulations and go back to the V10s.
Well, they're saying that these new engine regulations could bring back turbo lag. So it could make the car a little bit more difficult to drive, and the way it's being created could actually bring out some more sound. So yeah, we'll see what happens in about 3 years.
Just put some fucking fat exhaust on them. I don't care. Make them sound insane. Like, can you imagine, like, almost like a 97 Civic as a Formula One car comes past the corner, you hear as it goes past, like goes round a corner. I want to hear turbo flutter. I want to hear like those noises and stuff like that come out of a car because it just is fun.
Well, I've been to a race in 2011.
Yeah,
and obviously we did Austria last year.
Yes,
and the engine sound makes a huge impact on the just overall spectacle of racing.
Yeah,
and
it does.
It was so loud, I had to wear headphones.
Yeah,
it was just like
But
it was all like
you told me before I went to Belgium. You were like, you need to buy earplugs because your ears will be bleeding by the time we're finished. The F3 cars were louder. Like the F3 cars and the F2 cars sound brilliant. They shoot flames out the back of them as well. Brilliant.
So. Yeah, but it's good to see Adrian continuing the sport. He's extremely talented, and it'll be interesting
100%.
to see what designs him and his team come up with for the next few years. And hopefully the other teams will be spurned on to challenge him and Red Bull.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think who's the is it Dan Fallows for Aston Martin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that he could potentially be baby Newey. You never know.
Look at who's come back. James Allison's come back from
Allison, yeah, exactly. So it's going to be very interesting, for sure.
And Ferrari, I don't know who the technical director at Ferrari is. And obviously there's been the change at McLaren.
Yes.
Well. So, yeah, we'll see what the future holds. And
speaking of the future, We look forward
Okay.
to Miami. Obviously, I don't know whether or not all the water's gone yet, but I do know that a lot of the drivers have actually already started flying out. I know that Lando left today, purely on the chance that I saw his Instagram story. I'm not stalking him, but I saw via Instagram that he's obviously left for Miami. Apparently, Daniel Ricciardo is going to be at the Miami Grand Prix as well. Doesn't really surprise
Standard.
me. That's pretty standard Danny Rick
He's got
behaviour.
a huge following in America as well.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, so
he'll probably do some media events and things like that. So.
yeah, exactly. I would like to potentially see him do an FP in Vegas, just purely because I would imagine he'd be the sort of person to fight for that in his contract. He'd be like, I want one FP and I want it in Vegas, and I want it at night.
If Checo and Max stay next year, do you reckon there's a team for him?
What, for Danny?
Yeah.
What if, I know that he doesn't want to race at the back, but what if they bring in Daniel Ricciardo and they get rid of Nick de Vries?
I don't think you could.
No, I don't think they would either, but you never know.
It'd have to be Ferrari, Aston Martin, but they're pretty locked up.
Yeah.
Ferrari maybe if like Carlos is not performing.
Yeah. Well, there's always McLaren. That worked out well the last time.
No, he's not going to go back to McLaren.
No, I'm very clearly joking.
And Mercedes are pretty locked up unless Lewis decides to retire, but I think he'll stay a couple more seasons. So.
I think it would be difficult for him to force his way back in at this point.
Yeah. So really, unless Checo just absolutely just
tanks it from now on.
Not even tanks it, if he just causes issues by just being quick against Verstappen. I wonder if they will think like, oh gosh, we don't want to go through this again. We don't want another Mark and Sebastian.
I don't think. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I see Checo the next season.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, Checo's already earned his contract extension.
Yeah, so I see Checo the next season, and rightfully so. So, yeah. Miami. I wish they would just get rid of that weird turn. You know what I'm talking about?
Under the underpass at the end?
Yeah, it's just like it just breaks the flow of the circuit at the driving. It's just like it's like the Singapore sling. Yeah. It's a little bit like the Catalonia chicane. It's like
I think, to be fair, we've only raced there 1 year, so let's maybe see if it was like a one-off thing. Probably not, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt while they run this massive race in a car park. That it will be a bit better, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not a big fan of Miami anyway. There were 13 overtakes this race in Baku, and now we have to go to Miami.
I'm not expecting more, but I am expecting a battle between Max and Sergio, actually. I think Sergio's got the momentum. This, to me, it classifies similarly like a street circuit. I kind of compare it to Qatar. So I think Sergio will do well. And
I forgot about Qatar.
I think him and Max will have a good battle, similar to Max and Charles last season. I think we'll see the Aston back on the podium, and I know you're not the biggest fan of the States, but they know how to put on an event. Right?
True.
They know how to put on an event. So.
I kind of want Chuck Leclerc on the podium again, purely just to hear Chuck again. It's just monumentally funny. It just is funny. I want to see Chuck on the podium again because why not?
Actually, I'd like to see Chuck on the podium.
Yeah, why? Give it up for Chuck.
He knows it, man.
Yeah, I'd like to see him on the podium purely because it's funny. I'm also surprised that other people haven't called him Chuck. If somebody calls him Chuck over the weekend at Miami, a gold star for you, my friend, because that's brilliant. But yeah,
did he ever respond to that?
I don't think he did.
It's like,
but it just is so funny. It just is.
Slight segue. If you like music, Charles Leclerc's on Spotify.
He is. I haven't listened to the song. Have you?
It's not bad. It's actually not bad.
Okay.
It's definitely. You can tell it's done by someone who's like just learning piano, is new into it. But I was like, it's not bad. It's actually quite good.
Okay.
And he's quite high up on the charts, I think, considering.
I know he was high up on the charts, but I thought it was a joke at one point, so I didn't bother going to look.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I think it was like 6 on the iTunes charts, but Yeah, good on him. It's actually
Yeah.
not that bad.
Yeah,
So,
fair play. Well, do you remember? This is very very oddly specific, but when Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris were in their first year at McLaren, their launch event, they were playing around with some drums and stuff like that, and they said that they were going to make some music. What happened to that music, McLaren?
I don't know.
What happened?
We'll research and find out for the next.
Let's get the band together. Let's get Charles on the keyboard.
I know Lando DJs.
Yeah.
Lando DJs.
Yeah. Well, he's
Charles
teaching himself. I don't know how good he is at the moment.
Lewis was on that as XNDNA or something like that. XDNA.
XNDNA.
Yeah, that Christina Aguilera song, and he's big into his music as well. I reckon once he retires, he'll.
Do you know they used to do like charity singles in the UK, and it was all just like celebrity. We should do an F1 charity single.
That would be so good. Because do you remember? Was it 2011? They did like they were singing like Wonderwall or something. I think Lewis was on the guitar or something.
I don't remember
like
that.
Sky Sports or BBC. Segment, but I'll try and find it and send it to you. But
please do, because that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, we should get an F1 charity single. I'm here for it. Because that would be insane. I'm sure there are many other musical talents up and down the F1 grid for sure.
Just do what they did on lockdown and just hum the F1 theme.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that would probably work. Or even better, hum the Mexican Grand Prix theme, because it's just happier. It's just more fun. It just is.
Well, isn't that someone was saying that they should just do that every race?
That was me.
Along with was it you?
That was
along
me.
with the national anthems, they should do their like country's main instrument or musical style version of the F1 theme.
Yeah, so like you should have like music that represents that country should be like, if there's like a national choir or national band or like if that country is known for that type of music, then they should absolutely do an F1 theme in that style of music. Like, can you imagine if we had like a like Caribbean Grand Prix and you had it on like the steel drum or something like that? That would be so cool.
I was thinking, can you imagine in like Zandvoort there would be like some EDM hard style?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
of the F1 theme.
Or I like you could I'm trying not to say something stereotypical or something like that, but you could have like ancient like Japanese instruments and stuff like that. Do the Japanese Grand Prix?
Yeah, you can have like local or national instruments.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, like Mexico, that's what they use.
Yeah, that's exactly. Like it just makes sense. It just is
but
fun.
It's representation of their country, of their culture, and I think it's really good. I'll definitely. Oh wait, I'm not going to just watch the race at 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. I'm going to start a little bit earlier.
I'm gonna tune in 10 minutes before so I can hear this theme really given some life, essentially. I think it like South Africa's joining the calendar. Let's get some South African bits and pieces in there as well, like, or potentially joining the calendar anyway. Do it. Why not?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What were we talking about?
For the UK one, we're going to get Stormzy in to do it.
Stormzy. Mate, that would be cool.
Or Dave.
Or maybe like, who's at Eurovision? Oh, he already done it.
Sam
he did the national anthem. He did the national anthem.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah, he did the national anthem, didn't he? So, yeah. Maybe someone from Britain's Got Talent, or just like...
Susan Boyle.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Miami.
Yeah, bring on Miami.
Yeah, bring on Miami. It's going to be good. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. Think positive.
Do you know what time the race is actually on? Because I've just had a thought. Because obviously it's US based. I don't know what time.
But it's East Coast.
True. So
it will be on.
Qualifying is from 3 until 4 UK time.
Cool.
Wait, no, it's not. Oh, wait,
4 till 5.
No.
4 till 5
track time. So. My time is different. So if you select my time on the thing, sorry, it was in the preview. It was.
Oh, sorry. So it's 9 till 10 in the UK. So 10 to 11 for you.
Yeah.
And 8:30 is the race, and 9:30 for you.
Yeah, 9:30 for me. So I do apologise. When I was looking at it, it was originally showing track time, so I thought it was a bit better. But yeah, so 8:30 UK, 9:30 European time. That's not too bad, I guess. Qualifying is 10 till 11. for me. So it like 9 to 10 for you, I guess. Yeah, it's not on a completely ridiculous time. Providing there's no stupid red flags on the Sunday, we should be good.
Yeah, that's true.
And knowing my luck, I've just jinxed it, and there will be a 2-hour red flag.
So yeah, no, that's a decent time because usually there's a lot of sports during the day as well on a Sunday if you're into like Premier League, stuff like that. So,
yeah, exactly. Something I would like to say as well is that the over the weekend I did mention it briefly. I watched the F2 over the weekend. I watched Bearman won.
Mate, Bearman dominated.
Bearman. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. A little bit of F2 chat because it is genuinely very interesting. I think Bearman is destined for F1 at this point, to be completely honest.
Yeah, he's a Ferrari
junior driver, or junior driver academy or something. I don't know what the actual association is, but he's in the Ferrari driver family, which means essentially, if and when they want to get rid of Carlos or or Leclerc is what I was gonna say. I just couldn't remember his name. If and when they want to get rid of their current drivers, or Giovinazzi isn't cutting it anymore, they can get Bearman in, essentially. I think that I did, obviously living in Denmark, I was quite interested and invested in Vesti, who is currently, I believe, P2 in the championship as well. I was quite invested in him, but he messed up a little bit on a pit stop. And he didn't bring his tyres into the correct sort of window, essentially, but still managed to pick up a couple of points. But my main thing is that Bearman actually scored a Grand Slam, essentially. He was fastest in quali, he was fastest in the sprint race, and he was like in the feature race, and he was fastest in the sprint race as well. So he is the only person in F2 history. GP2 is a different history, but he's the only person in F2 history to ever have done that. Bearing in mind that in F2, you have also had the likes of George Russell, Lando Norris, Nicholas Goat Tiffy. Those are the levels of drivers that we're dealing. Don't shake your head. These are the levels of drivers that you're dealing with, and Bearman has pulled an absolute blinder and gone the quickest the entire weekend. He is seriously one to watch. They were talking about his adaptability. The last person they said that about was Oscar Piastri.
And look how well he's doing.
He's doing pretty well, despite even a stomach bug. So hopefully also Piastri's better for this weekend. Going back to the F2. If you have the time, F2 unfortunately is not racing in Miami, unfortunately. But the next time that the F2's on, and if you've got a spare half an hour, whatever it is, and you have the opportunity to watch some F2, do it. I would highly recommend it.
I'm going to start watching it.
Please do, like genuinely, because it was very entertaining. I thought it was a more entertaining race than the F1, and I say that with full confidence. And
no, I'm definitely going to start watching it a lot more.
Yeah. The Italian Grand Prix in 2 weeks, we have F2 and F3. So I will 100% be watching the F2 and probably the F3. They have the Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup as well that weekend too, so I'll probably tune in for that as well. But I will 100% be watching the F2 on the 21st of May, 21st of May for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep, please do support the feeder series because the racing is pretty good, and we have 1 or 2 championship contenders, which is pretty nice.
Nice. Also, did you see that video? Was it Fittipaldi? He was like, I don't know what position.
Yeah, obviously, I watched that live, and he was like, "What did I finish P5?" And like, no, I think we're joking.
It's like, are you joking? Yeah. Like, you finished P2, and he was so happy.
Absolutely brilliant. And Fittipaldi's also doing very well in the championship as well, might I add.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like genuinely, go and watch it because it's
maybe we can start doing some like F2 reviews.
I would like to, and this is sort of what I've done already. To be fair, like that's what I've been trying to do a little bit in terms of like dipping my toe into F2, because I should, because it's just as entertaining.
Yeah, let's do that. We're going to have an F2 section now on this podcast.
Sure, let's do it. Just every weekend where there's F2 and we manage to watch it, we will cover it for sure.
Nice.
Before we close things out, we have been recording for 1 hour and 5 minutes essentially right now. But
Yep.
I would like to very quickly run through some breaking news, I guess. It's not really that impactful, really. But the first look at the new covers for F123 have been revealed.
Have they?
So the cover stars are as follows. For the Champions Edition, it is Max Verstappen on his own. As a ambassador for EA, obviously he's sponsored by EA. He has been given the Champions Edition cover solo, and he is the first F1 driver to be solo on the front of a F1 game. Usually it's like multiple people, essentially, which is just pretty interesting. That's all I was really going to say around that. We will have a full sort of bit more information. The official video game will be sort of announced and fully revealed in 1 day, 19 hours as of the recording. So I guess we'll have some more information, but we don't know who the other cover stars are going to be. But we do. I was looking for a photo essentially. For the standard edition cover, there will be Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris will be on the standard edition, and then on the championship edition or Champions edition will be Max Verstappen.
Cool.
Just some interesting bits to cover. I mean, we both have. I'll be honest with you, they look airbrushed as hell in this preview image. Lewis looks like a Ken doll.
They will be.
So, but yeah, I think that F123 hopefully will be a bit better than F122 because we both bought the game and we haven't played it.
No.
Because it's just not as good as 21 or 20.
Nah, but hopefully they've made some improvements.
I've seen a few leaked bits of video and it just looks almost exactly the same. It's classic EA, to be completely honest with you, where they just don't upgrade the game and they just release the same thing but with a bit different skins.
Yeah, and hopefully they'd have cut down on cheating and track limits. Jacob in Austria.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, so I guess that's actually about it. We can.
I thought maybe you would finish off because it is the 1st of May.
Oh yes.
Just remembering one of the greatest drivers.
Yes, that is.
Sports.
Yes, that actually. Thank you for reminding me. That is something that I was going to say as well. When I mentioned death earlier in the podcast. Yes, obviously today is the anniversary of Ayrton Senna's death. And yeah, just wanted to touch on how influential and incredible his career was. In F1, he is still a huge influence to today. And whenever the thought of Senna comes up, not only is it sad and tragic in complete honesty, but it also begs the question as to the question that I always come back to is just how good could he have been in terms of if something hadn't have happened. To him.
It's really sad. It's a big what if. But
it's a huge what if, which unfortunately we will never get the answer to. And I would argue it is potentially one of the biggest, if not the biggest, what if in the entirety of Formula One history, which says a lot about the man. And that's about it. But it's something that we should absolutely talk about.
Yeah, if you've not seen the Senna film, watch it. It's a great film.
Yeah.
And YouTube some of his highlights, like his race at Donington.
Yeah.
His Monaco pole laps. And just him in general. He's very charismatic. He was a racer through and through.
If you have, I think about 10 minutes, just purely 10 minutes, go and watch the BBC Top Gear Senna tribute. Just watch that and you will understand almost everything you need to know about him. His funeral was like a national memorial. It was insane. He was loved by millions around the world, not only in Brazil. And it's insane the influence he's had on our sport.
What driver do you think most closely resembles Senna out of the current crop?
I don't know. because he was such an individual. I don't think that we've seen a racing driver like him since.
I think probably say Max. I would say is the closest to Senna.
I mean, I guess so, but not to the same. For me, not in the same way. I don't think that anyone has really come along like him and done what he did. But I think it's also very difficult in this modern age of Formula One to do something like that too.
Or anything like
you
that,
can't, not really anyway. You can compare, I guess, eras. Like you could compare the V6 hybrid. You can compare the V10 hybrid. You can compare the 80s. Essentially, regulation changes or the regulation periods is what you can kind of compare, but you can't really compare Schumacher to Hamilton, and you can't compare Hamilton to Vettel. Well, actually, sorry, not to Vettel. You can't compare Hamilton to Senna. There are different times, different regulations, different everything. But you can't take away how influential any one of those drivers are, especially not Ayrton Senna.
Yeah, he's missed, and
absolutely. Yeah. And I think the thing that really hits home for me is that, and I do think about it every now and again, especially when he's brought up, if you look at Niki Lauda, Lauda was around until the end. He was in the garage with Toto during race weekends. He was in and out of the team and providing guidance to the drivers and stuff like that. And I know for a fact it won't have just been guidance to the Mercedes boys. He would have had conversations with most of the drivers and stuff. He seemed from the outside looking in very approachable, and it does make me wonder how Senna would have been in the paddock in a similar capacity, and that's quite interesting and again quite sad to think about.
Yeah, I think he would have been there because if you see some of the Senna clips, he had a real push on safety.
Yeah,
him and is it Dr. Watkins? Is it Watkins? Who's the doctor?
I want to say
as
yes.
well, that had a real big push with Formula One. So I think he would have always been there. Just how do we advance the sport even more? How do we advance the sport even more?
Yeah.
But if you can have a YouTube marathon of Ayrton Senna, you won't be disappointed.
No, absolutely not. The guy was incredible. We will. You know what? We will. I don't want to end the podcast on that much of a down
it's like,
tone.
I mean,
but
yeah,
a
little bit. But I think we're celebrating his.
Oh yeah,
his
absolutely.
life.
Absolutely celebrating it. And I was going to say what we should do is we should during one of the down weeks or maybe during the during the summer break. Sorry, please do excuse me. My throat is still horrible. But one of the down weeks or something like that, one of the slower weeks, we can deep dive into Senna and his influence, how he raced, what made him so good, and why almost if you ask any driver on the grid who is the greatest of them all, 9 times out of 10 they will say Senna.
Who's your favorite driver
of all time?
Of all time, yeah.
Sebastian Vettel.
Ooh, interesting.
Easy. It didn't even have to think about it. I didn't know whether or not you meant favorite driver like on the grid right now.
No. Not like who you think is the best driver. Who's your favorite driver?
Favorite driver, Sebastian Vettel.
Nice.
He had the dog in him, but also he likes saving bees, so you can't really knock the bloke for that. That's my thing. Like he had the best of both worlds. I think he was such a villain in his Red Bull era, the first 2 or 3 years, and then that last 4th year, and then afterwards onto that, he sort of realised that he had more of a voice than he maybe even thought that he ever could have, and more of an influence, and really made the most of it.
Interesting, because I think a lot of people say Senna. I think Gilles Villeneuve, in my opinion, would have been one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah, I think that there's a very I'm
not trying to say who was like. Oh,
no, I get that.
I think sometimes he gets forgotten about.
He does,
and
yeah.
If you've watched some of his races and his mentality on racing, I definitely think unfortunately his career was cut short,
Yeah.
if he had been around a lot longer, he would definitely be talked about a lot more, like Senna and Lauda and Prost.
Do you think that there's anyone in the current crop of younger Formula One drivers that we could potentially be talking about in the same capacity as your Hamiltons, your Prosts, your Hills, your Jackie Stewarts? Is there anyone that you think could be talked about in that
I
capacity?
don't know. Would we count Max in that?
Max,
in that
I
list?
am arguing yes, because I'm older than him.
Okay, so I'll definitely count Max in that list.
Yeah, I think Max...
simply because I think Max will leave the sport, and we'll still think, "What if?"
Yeah, I can see him leaving sooner rather than later.
I don't think he'll stay as long as maybe like a Hamilton or an Alonso.
Honestly, I think if Verstappen wins this year, he will carry on to maybe 4th or 5th. But if he doesn't win this year and maybe wins a 3rd championship next year, he might bin it off.
Really?
I think 3 is enough for that man.
Yeah, I think possibly 2026 or 2027 we might see him leave, and then everyone will be like, "Well, what if? What if?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he'll be one of those drivers, which will be him. I say Alonso, but he's still racing. But
yeah, I
think Alonso is one of those bigs. Like, if he'd only had the right car or made the right career move, is his thing. Obviously Hamilton's up there, but I can't see any other driver beyond that
on that level.
Yeah, where we'd talk about them like 30, 40 years in the future.
No.
Let's say that they're not great and things can change.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it. Maybe Charles Leclerc could be the other
Charles could be there. There's an argument for Lando and George to be potentially made, but
I think Lando's personality, because if you look at these drivers like Senna, Villeneuve, Max, Alonso, Hamilton, they live and breathe racing. Right? Yeah. Whereas Lando, obviously, he's super talented, but he also has a life outside of racing. He's got his music, I forgot what I was going to say, golf and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I might think
that's why I said George.
Yeah, George could be up there. Yeah.
I think that, but the reason why I mentioned them and I say potentially them is that a lot of things have to fall in place for those to happen.
Yeah. And they're still young. Things could change for them and stuff like that. Because if you think as Lando a future Senna, kind of like Senna-esque, you're like of like, but he's like young 20s. Obviously, he just wants to have fun and mess around and as well, which is totally understandable.
Who knows? It sounds semi ridiculous, but who knows? Maybe Behrman.
Yeah, you never
I say Piastri. That deadly seriously. Behrman, Piastri, you could be, like I said. So I don't know don't know if you know, but the Ferrari team was stood around the bottom of the podium as Behrman was sort of put on the podium for F2, meaning the Ferrari management are taking him deadly seriously.
Yeah, and so they should be.
So I mean, I say it seriously. He could be one that we're talking about in 30, 40 years to come as such an incredible champion. You never know.
Yeah, I know. And I think also with Max, like I said, he lives and breathes racing, right? If he's not racing on a track, I'll just go and sim race. So what do you do in your off time? I sim race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I race.
So, yes, Miami. This week, when this podcast comes out, hopefully we'll have a more interesting race than Baku.
Yes.
McLaren look to be pushing up. Ferrari seem to be improving their car. The Astons are going to always be there. We're interested to see what the Mercedes bring, but hopefully Checo can continue his fight with Max and give us a World Drivers' Championship that hopefully finishes with them fighting each other in Abu Dhabi.
Let's see. Let's absolutely see. I do like how we talked about arguably one of the most boring races that I've seen in a while, and this is the longest podcast we've ever recorded.
Yeah, but then we started talking about Senna and
we
music
do have a lot of stuff
and all that
thrown in there.
I think that shows that we spent more time not talking about the race.
True, yeah, but there's always something to talk about when it comes to Formula One.
There is always something to talk about.
So we can wrap it up there. I talk for both of us when I do say seriously, go and watch some Senna stuff if you haven't already,
Absolutely.
and if you have, here is your excuse to go ahead and do it anyway, because he transcends the sport. And yeah, that's where we're going to leave it there. And also, more importantly, to go and watching Senna, leave us a rating. Tell your friends about the 107. No, I'm kidding. But please do be sure to leave us a rating. Let us know how we're doing, and be sure to come back next week.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
All right. Bye.